Hello, Gabe Heller here, G-Hohenzollern on YouTube and Hannah Brown Couch on Twitch, and this video is to teach you how to install SteamOS on the ATARI VCS. First thing you want to do is go to this web page here, store.steampowered.com/SteamOS/build-your-own. And if you scroll down towards the bottom, you will find two places you can download the SteamOS installation. These are exactly the same. The instructions afterwards are all that differs. So we're going to download the SteamOS installation. There we go. Now while this is downloading, there's a few things I should tell you. So there are two main parts to SteamOS. The first part is the SteamOS Linux distribution, and the other part is the SteamOS desktop, which are places like GNOME or KDE in this distribution of Linux. Now, so far, I've only gotten the Linux distribution successfully installed. I have not managed to get the SteamOS desktop working. Perhaps there'll be a second part to this video if at some point I manage to do that. I've checked many places and followed many sets of instructions, and none of them have actually fixed that. Now, you're going to want a jump drive that's at least 1.4 gigs big, so probably 2 gigs is the minimum. Or you can put it on a DVD drive, but this one is a lot easier to put onto a jump drive than other Linux distros. So I'm going to show you how to do it. So the first thing you want to do is type in disk part here. There we go. And right-click on it to be sure you're running it as administrator. There we go. And say yes. So the instructions on that page we were just looking at are actually partially wrong. They tell you to use an MBR, but as far as I can tell, MBR is not correct. You don't want to use an MBR. You want to use GPT. Now, those are the two types of partition tables that you can have on a drive. There may be more, but those are the two well-known ones these days. You also want to make a FAT32 partition. You may find that that's not the kind of partition that's on your drive. So first, let's list our disks. I have a lot of disks, as you can see, but the one that I have a 16 gig drive, so the one that says 14 gigabytes, that's probably the one. So you select disk 4, whichever one is the correct size. If two of them are the same size, make sure you select the right one. You don't want to delete something you don't want to be deleting. So we've selected disk 4. List partition. And you will see that, there we go. Partition 1 is there, but I believe it's NTFS. So we want to delete partition 1. Make sure there's nothing on it first, obviously. Select partition 1. Hello? I spelled it wrong. Select partition 1, delete partition. There we go. Okay. List partition. There are no partitions on this disk to show. Cool. So then we also want to convert to GPT. Specified is not an MBR format. So this one's fine, but if yours was an MBR format, that would have converted it to GPT format. Okay. And now we want to exit. I just took the jump drive out and put it back in. And it says, please insert a disk. So now we right-click on the Start button there, right-click, there we go, and go to Disk Management. Okay, so here it is. Right-click on that and say New Simple Volume. It's fine if you use it all, and that's all fine, but we want to format it as file system FAT32. Okay. Finish. And now we have a new volume, which is excellent. So now we go to the file which we have downloaded. There it is. And we open it. There it is, and we simply copy all these files onto our drive. And believe it or not, this will make a drive that will boot on the ATARI VCS. Alrighty, it's copied, and now we're ready to install.
So here we've got the drive that I just made. I'm going to plug it in here to the ATARI VCS, and I've got a blank 32 gigabyte drive here, which I'm going to install to. Now, I wouldn't suggest you install to a USB drive, even a USB 3 drive, unless it's quite fast. This installation is going to take a very long time. I would suggest using an external hard drive or SSD. And the installation process might be slightly different from that. Sorry about that. But let's get going here. I don't have a spare one that I can install to at the moment. The other thing you're going to need is a network cable. I was not able to get the Wi-Fi working at all. Okay, so you're going to want to select Expert Install and hit Enter. Select your language. I happen to be in the United Kingdom and I didn't fly a keyboard over here, so I've got a UK keyboard. Detecting and mounting the CD-ROM. And loading additional components. Now, one thing I should let you know is that you may have some trouble booting from this drive. Now, I didn't have any. I have Secure Boot disabled. Now, as far as I can tell, Secure Boot only has to do with whether you need specially signed operating systems on your internal drives, not your external drives. I believe it will boot from external drives regardless, but it may protect the internal drives from changes if it's not using Secure Boot. However, I do have Secure Boot turned off on mine, so I'm not certain about this. Okay, so we're at the partition disks phase. If you want to install UEFI mode, yes. I tried it without UEFI and I could never get it to work, so we're going with yes. Now, you'll notice that it has selected here SDA, which is the first device, and that's actually the install media. We don't want it to install over the install media. That's not going to work. So we need to go back. And generally going back in SteamOS setup seems to be the way that you get to custom options. Okay, so here we have our blank 32 gig drive, and as you can see it has an NTFS partition on it right now, so we need to remove that. So I double click on it, and then we delete it. Here we go. Okay, then we select the free space, and automatically partition the free space. Ta-da! Okay, all files in one partition. There we go, and it has made us up a bunch of partitions. This is the UEFI boot partition, this is the root directory, and this is the swap partition. There we go. And for some reason there's a tiny amount of free space on either side, but I don't think it works if you don't do that. Which is why it's good to do it automatically. Okay, finish partitioning and write changes to disk. Okay, yes, that all looks right. Continue. And now we'll do some partitioning. It's now installing the base system, and this is going to take like an hour and a half or something, but that's where we are for the moment. And after a certain amount of time, this will come up. These are fine, Debian desktop environment and standard system utilities. Just leave them there and click continue. This is also going to take a very long time. about to install the grub bootloader, but this is going to cause an error. So I'm going to show you how to get around that error. So if you press Control-Alt-F2, you will get to a message that says, please press Enter to activate this console. Okay, and at this prompt you want to type chroot /target, which will change the current root directory to the root directory on the device you're installing to. Then you want to get into the etc directory, and from there into the grub.d directory. And in there is a file called 30_UEFI firmware, which you need to edit. _UEFI-firmware. There we go. And there's a slight mistake in this. Down on this line, this says %x, which can allow it to print out letters which may be misinterpreted by something, and in the case of the ATARI VCS, they are. So I'm going to, getting into VI to edit it, I'm going to press R and then D to replace the X with a D, and then colon and W and Enter to write. Having written it, I'm going to use colon and Q to quit. There we go, and then exit twice to get back out of the terminal. Then if you hit Control-Alt-F5, you'll be back at this screen, and you'll see that in the meantime, Update Grub has failed. So we go back, and then continue, and try again by double-clicking on Install the Grub bootloader on a hard disk. And this time it should work. At this point it will reboot, so you'll want to remove the installation media. It can take a while to boot at this point, but we're just going to let it do so. Alright, so this is the point where we discover that things are not working. Now, it is possible to get some usability out of SteamOS, but I've not been able to get the SteamOS desktop to work. So, let me show you what you do at this point to get some more functionality. If you hold down Control and Alt and F2 to get to one of these again, you can log in as desktop, which has root privileges and no password. Very secure. Alright, we are logged in as desktop, and now we can do such important things as setting the default desktop to not be the SteamOS desktop, which I've not been able to get working. So the way you do that is you type dpkg-reconfigure GDM3. And it doesn't find it. And that's because it's in some directory. I think it might... Oh, wait, hello? Oh, yeah, that's my mouse. For some reason, my mouse generates errors. I don't think yours will, but if it does, don't be surprised because mine did. Okay. Okay, so that's the reason. It's not because it didn't know where it was, it's because it won't run root commands. It won't even find them without sudo in front. So sudo dpkg-reconfigure GDM3. Now it should work. There we go. And really quickly we get this screen. We select GDM3, hit enter for OK. And after a little bit of time, you should get a prompt back. Okay, so it's trying to reload Xorg with this new desktop manager, but it doesn't work. So what we need to do instead is reboot, and then it should work. Alright, so here we are, and we're going to log in as Steam with the password of Steam, and we want to set the default desktop environment to GNOME. But that didn't work, so what we need to do is actually set the password for the Steam account to Steam. For some reason, in the terminal login, it is set to Steam, but not for the graphical login. So, by hitting Control-Alt-F2 and getting to here, hello? Apparently it isn't. So we have to log in as desktop, which has worked before, and sudo password Steam, set the new password to Steam, ta-da, and now we should be able to hit Control-Alt-F7 to get back here. Type in Steam and sign in. And here we are at the GNOME version of the SteamOS desktop. Not the SteamOS desktop, just the GNOME version. And from here we can run Steam. It will probably want to update itself, but then you can play Steam games on SteamOS. And again, if I manage to get the SteamOS desktop working, I'll have a second video on how to do that.
Just to let you know, this video is over soon. So rub your eyes and stretch your thighs and sing in tune. It's time to find another kind of video, for this one is nearly done, you know.